Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod Science classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to see current affairs of 19th October 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 6 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So now, let us try to see some of the topics which are important and that we are going to discuss in this lecture. So first topic is about recent attacks in Jammu and Kashmir. So it made reveals so who is behind this attack, that is about terror outfits. So this is according to our NIA. So this article is very important. Actually we need to refer what is this NIA, and this is your homework regarding you have to refer what is this NIA and what is a mandate and some important features of this NIA. So you have to remember that, and that will be important from your prelims point of view. This topic is important from art security, which comes under GS paper 3. And next topic is about global hunger index. So there is one infographic which appeared in page number 8, that is in op-ed page. So one student, name is Suryakant, he mainly requested me to incorporate these infographics which are important. So I am also taking that into consideration, and from today onwards, if at all any infographic is important from UPSC point of view, we are going to have a discussion as well, and you can take those infographics and you can write at least 5 to 6 points regarding that, and you can write separately that data in your data book. That will be helpful for your mains. And this topic is important from governance again. And next one, it is Kushinagar connect to Sri Lanka. So this article mainly talking about this Kushinagar. So our Prime Minister, he is going to inaugurate airport in this Kushinagar. Actually it is one of the Buddhist circuit. So this article is important from schemes because here we are going to talk about Swadesh Darshan scheme. And next topic is about monsoon rainfall. So as we all know that there is heavy rainfall that is happening in Kerala, and Kerala, it is in emergency situation now. Not only this Kerala but also many other states are also getting intense rainfall. So this article which is mainly talking about monsoon rainfall and what are the steps that can be taken by government, that will be important from our geography point of view. And next topic is about investment. So this topic is important from our economy. And next topic is about improving of livestock breeding. So what happens? So whatever the schemes that are present regarding our livestock breeding, so there are some important reforms that made. So these reforms, they will help for improving of our livestock. So we are going to discuss what are those schemes, that is NLM scheme and as well as E-Gopala, etc. So we are going to discuss about that. So these are the some important topics that we are going to discuss in this lecture. So let's get started and let us see first topic. Title says recent attacks in Jammu and Kashmir reveals terror outfits new strategy. So it is the thing which mainly said by NIA. So it is about J&K, okay, Jammu and Kashmir. So in Jammu and Kashmir attacks are happening. So what is the reason? Reason here is terror outfits. So here we need to understand why these terror outfits, they are going for these attacks in this Jammu and Kashmir. So to understand this, we need to go back to 2019 August. So on 5th and 6th August 2019, what happened? So our government came up with some remarkable things in Jammu and Kashmir. It revoked 2 articles. Article 370 of Indian Constitution and Article 35A of Indian Constitution. So these articles mainly talking about special category status for this Jammu and Kashmir. So after revocation of these 2 articles, our government came with the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019, and it bifurcated Jammu and Kashmir state into 2 union territories. At present, we have 2 union territories in place of state Jammu and Kashmir, that is Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir with Legislative Assembly and Union Territory of Ladakh without Legislative Assembly. So this is some background that you need to know before reading this article. So now let us try to see what is this article talking about, why it is in news. So because of this latest attacks which is happening, which are going on in Jammu and Kashmir, is a part of terror outfits new strategy. Now these terror outfits, they came up with a new strategy, and they want to come up with derailing of whatever the measures which are taken by government, especially government which has taken number of steps to promote industrial development and as well as to extend domicile status to various categories of people, and those people now will be eligible for jobs and as well as other benefits. So mainly to derail these measures which are came up by the government. So here these are the things which are mainly doing by these terror outfits. So this is according to our National Investigation Agency NIA findings. So now let us try to see some important details. If you see details, it mainly says that the strategy to be adopted by terrorists in view of some measures taken by government after dilution of Jammu and Kashmir special status in 2019 August. So in 2019 August, on August 5th and 6th, government came up with revocation of Article 317 as well as Article 335A of Indian Constitution. So because of this revocation of articles and bifurcation of Jammu and Kashmir into two union territories, so these are the some important things which mainly done by government. So mainly this is a strategy which adopted by terrorists mainly because of these measures which are taken by government. And in one blog has now been, so in this blog, one blog terrorist, they mainly started sharing of messages. So this blog which has been now blocked by on orders of this Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. And if you see this content of this blog, which is mainly circulated among the terror outfits, and because of this blog which is sharing information, that led to murder of 11 civilians in this Jammu and Kashmir so far. So because of this attacks which are happening, our government, our army also came up with counter-terror operations. So in these counter-terror operations, the security forces, they eliminated 13 terrorists in past 10 days. So this is about this topic, and I hope it is clear. And your duty is to do some research regarding what is this NIA, National Investigation Agency. So this topic will be important from our prelims. Now let us try to see infographic. I took this infographic in our OPED page. So it is mainly talking about our global hunger index. So in yesterday's lecture and as well as day before yesterday's lecture, we studied about this global hunger index, right? So now let us try to understand what is written in this infographic. So please spare me for next 5 minutes to understand this infographic. So here it is talking about lacking in nutrition. So as we all know, in this global hunger index of 2021, India's rank is 101 out of 116 countries. So out of 116 countries, India stood at 101. And here, which is the organization which released this hunger index? So you have to remember that, and please let me know in comment box. From last 2 days onwards, we are discussing about this topic, right? So here, which is the organization released this global hunger index? So you have to let me know in comment box. And if you're talking about dimensions, there are mainly 3 dimensions and there are 4 indicators. So what are those 4 indicators? That is under 5 mortality, stunting, wasting, and as well as we can say like undernourishment. So these are 4 indicators. So these 4 indicators mainly used to compute the score and the share of the population that is undernourished, and as well as children who are under 5 who are wasted, and as well as stunted, and even under 5 mortality. So these are 4 indicators. So among these, if we are comparing this rank with 2012, we can see that there is stunting and this we can see mortality which has been decreased. So why? Because government took many steps like Poshan Abhiyan, and as well as in schools they started providing nutrient rich food, for example through this midday meals program, and even Anganwadi services or Anganwadi centers, they started providing some supplementary food that will be given for children who are not going to school, like preschool children. And the next one is even pregnant women and as well as lactating women, they will be getting some support and they will be getting some nutritious food from this Anganwadis, like they will be supplying some proteinaceous powder, and as well as they will supply eggs per day, and as well as they will supply milk per woman who are especially pregnant, and as well as for lactating women. So in this way, here Anganwadi centers are contributing, and as well as ASHA workers also promoting some awareness, and even government is coming with number of schemes in government schools. So because of all these steps, here stunting and as well as mortality has been decreased when we are comparing from 2012 till 2021. So this is the one thing important you need to know. And not only this, even this National Family Health Survey 2019 to 2020 also said that majority of states for which data were released, stunting and wasting has increased compared to 2015-16 survey round. So but here it mainly says that, so one important thing which mainly says that there is decreasing of the stunting, but in some states, according to this National Family Health Survey, there is increasing of stunting and wasting. Okay, stunting and wasting which mainly increased when we are compared to 2015 to 2016 survey. So if you're talking about this thing, that is declining trend, India's rank in this global hunger index consistently it is worsening from last 10 years. So if you see in 2011 it is 67, 2012 65, 2013 63, 2014 55, and if you see from 2015 onwards, there is continuous we can see decrease in rank that is seen. So we are seeing there is a poor performance of India in this global hunger index. And if you are talking about nutrient assessment or nutrition assessment, according to this global hunger index, prevalence of wasting. Okay, so many students they comment about what is this wasting and as well as what is this stunting. So wasting means low weight, W for weight, right? So wasting means low weight to age, stunting means low height to weight. So here if you are talking about wasting in children who are under 5 in India, which mainly increased in especially 2021. So here you can connect what happened in this year 2020. So due to this COVID-19 pandemic, schools have been shut down and Anganwadi services are also not working efficiently. So because of all these things, there is no proper nutrition diet which is provided to children because of closure of schools, and even there is no proper Anganwadi services. So we need to maintain some, we need to follow here COVID-19 guidelines, right? So mainly to follow those COVID-19 guidelines in Anganwadi centers and to bring a large amount of preschool children means it is an important and as well as it is a very difficult task. So because of this here it mainly adversely affected the nutrition of children, especially who are under 5. And this one is National Family Health Survey 4. It mainly says that in 10 out of 18 states which have higher percentage of children who were wasted in 2019-20. And if you're talking about prevalence of stunting means low height. So here it mainly says that here National Family Health Survey 5, which mainly says that, so 11 out of 18 states study conducted and they said children they were stunted in 2019, and when we are comparing with that of 2015 and 16, the children very much stunted here. So if you see this graph, it mainly says that here this yellow color it mainly talks about wasting in under 5. So if you are comparing with 2000 and 2021, wasting had been reduced. And this one is share of undernourished population. It is almost same, or we can say like there is somewhat less or decreased. And next one is prevalence of stunting in children under 5. So this red color is stunting. It is almost same, I can say. And next one is under 5 mortality, which has been reduced drastically. So these are the some important things that you need to remember, and you have to remember this graph also. And this is the data which is given in this infographic. Now let us move on to next topic. Title says Kushinagar connect to Sri Lanka. So here we need to talk about where is this Kushinagar located, that is in UP, right? And the next one is why this Kushinagar is important. So if you have completed your static syllabus of especially ancient India, that too Buddhism, then you will come to know about importance of this Kushinagar and importance of UP, right? So now let us try to see this topic and I will try to explain each and everything in a very great detail. Now let us try to see why this Kushinagar is in news. So our Prime Minister declares to open Kushinagar International Airport in Uttar Pradesh. So here on October 20, our Prime Minister going to declares or declares Kushinagar International Airports in Uttar Pradesh. So because of this is in news. And if you see some details, it mainly says that so the airport, which is expected to provide seamless connectivity to tourists, especially from Sri Lanka, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, China, Thailand, Vietnam and Singapore. So what happened in these states, Buddhism, it is vastly spread. So here Buddhism spread to Sri Lanka, which is mainly because of son and daughter of Ashoka, King Ashoka, right? So here Buddhist, okay, so these Buddhist countries like Sri Lanka, Japan, Taiwan and South Korea, China and Thailand, Vietnam and Singapore, they will have seamless connectivity with this Kushinagar now when we have this international airport. And this Kushinagar, it is a center of Buddhist circuit as well. So it is one of the Buddhist circuit place, and here this Kushinagar will mainly contains pilgrimage sites at Lumbini, Sarnath and Gaya. And if you see, Buddhist pilgrims mainly consider Kushinagar, which is a sacred site where they believe Gautam Buddha delivered his last sermon and also attained Mahaparinirvana or salvation. So in this Kushinagar, so Gautam Buddha, he mainly delivered his last sermon and as well as he attained Mahaparinirvana. Mahaparinirvana means nothing but salvation. Salvation means enlightenment. Okay. So here one question I want to ask, where Gautam Buddha delivered his first sermon? So here he delivered his last sermon here, right? So where did he delivered first sermon? So let me know in comment box. And let us move forward. It mainly says that the inaugural flight on Wednesday will land at the airport from Colombo, Sri Lanka, carrying about 125 member delegation of dignitaries and Buddhist monks. So in this inaugural flight here, so here they will land at this airport from Colombo, okay, and in this airplane there will be 125 members delegation of dignitaries and as well as it includes Buddhist monks as well. To mark occasion, Sri Lanka will present to India photographs of two murals. So here one more keyword is mural paintings. So where we can see these mural paintings, for example in Ajanta, in Ellora and as well as Sittanivasal caves, and in these areas we can see this mural paints. So what is the meaning of mural paints? Nothing but I can say if there is any wall, entire wall will be painted. So this images are very big and these are called as mural paintings. So these mural paintings are seen in Ajanta, Ellora and as well as Sittanivasal caves. So please open your art and culture book, that is Nitin Singhania, and you have to refer about this mural paintings. So if you are not interested to read the books, so in our Nitin Singhania playlist, I recorded lecture regarding this mural paintings. So please try to watch that video at least. So the link of that Nitin Singhania video will be given in description box. So please watch that mural paintings. That is a very important. So I covered two chapters from this Nitin Singhania. First one is architecture. Second one is paintings. So from this paintings and architecture, you can expect questions in your mains and as well as prelims. Okay. So now let's come back and let us see what are those two mural paintings. So one mural depicts Arhat Bhikkhu Mahinda. He was the son of Emperor Ashoka, delivering message of Buddha to King Devanampiya Tissa of Sri Lanka. So here our son, okay, we can say like son of our Emperor Ashoka, he made delivering the message of the Buddha to King Devanampiya Tissa of Sri Lanka. So if you see here, okay, so this is about the first mural, and second mural is the other shows the arrival of Teri Bhikkhuni Sanghamita. Okay, Teri Bhikkhuni Sanghamita. She is the daughter of emperor in Sri Lanka, bearing a sapling of sacred Bodhi tree under which Siddhartha Gautam believed to have obtained enlightenment. So one more question is, where this Siddhartha Gautama got enlightenment? So in which place? So this is the second question, and these are very, very important questions that you can expect from this Buddhism chapter. So here, where this Siddhartha Gautama believed to obtain enlightenment, so at that place here, Teri Bhikkhuni, that is Sanghamita. Okay, Sanghamita, she was the daughter of emperor in Sri Lanka, bearing a sapling of this sacred Bodhi tree under the area where here Siddhartha Gautama believed to obtain this enlightenment. So these are about these two morals. And if you see some facts, it mainly says that, so 5 states, they were the project under Buddhist circuit. So 5 states includes MP, second one is UP, Bihar, Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh. So in Andhra Pradesh also we are having many Buddhist sites, and even in Gujarat and also Bihar, UP and MP. So these 5 states which are mainly comes under this project of this Buddhist circuit. So this Buddhist circuit, it is among the 15 thematic circuits which mainly identified by development under this Swadesh Darshan scheme. Under this Swadesh Darshan scheme, there are 15 thematic circuits. So out of this 15 thematic circuit, one circuit, it is our Buddhist circuit. And if you are talking about some important facts regarding this Swadesh Darshan scheme, so this is a central sector scheme. That means 100% of funding that will come from center. There is no need of sharing of funds between center and state. And this scheme was launched in year 2014-15, and it is mainly for integrated development of theme-based tourist circuits in the country. And under this scheme, Ministry of Tourism provides central finance assistance to state governments or union territory, okay, especially for infrastructure development of the circuits. And this scheme mainly envisaged to synergize with other schemes like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and as well as Skill India, Make in India, etc. So here whenever we are promoting this type of circuits means it will be helpful for especially tourism sector. And you all know this tourism sector is one of the important sector which impacted badly due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And it also creates jobs, and even it will be helpful for our economic growth. So this is about this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. It is about our monsoon rains. Title says slippery slopes. Here if you see central theme, it mainly says that to face heavy monsoons, states they must prepare the integrity of rivers and as well as mountains. It is mainly focusing on integrity of rivers and as well as mountains. So this article will be important from GS paper 1 under geography. So now let us try to see this topic, and this topic will be important from especially from your mains, not from prelims. If you see the central theme, it mainly says that to face heavy monsoons, states they must preserve the integrity of rivers and mountains. If you see here, why we need to talk about this monsoons now. So as we know, this southwest monsoon mainly retreats. So during this retreating, it is creating heavy rainfall in northern Karnataka, Telangana region, Odisha, Bengal and as well as some northeastern states in month of October. So what happened during this retreating of this monsoon, that is mainly leading to heavy rainfall, very heavy rainfall, and because of that is causing destruction in several districts. And especially if you are talking about Kerala, that led to significant loss of life in Kerala. While the heaviest rainfall or heaviest recent downpour which mainly reported in West Madhya Pradesh and as well as Odisha, Rajasthan and Uttarakhand, there has been very heavy rainfall in Kerala and as well as Gangetic West Bengal. So in this Kerala and West Bengal region, there is heavy rainfall which mainly intense and as well as witnessed by these two states, Kerala and West Bengal. So the Indian monsoon, it is an invaluable resource that mainly sustains hundreds of millions of people. Why? Because as you all know, India's economy which is mainly dependent on agriculture. So it is mainly based on primary economy, right? So it is mainly based on agriculture led economy, we can say like that. So if you're talking about this agriculture, whether we have proper irrigation facilities, only in some areas which is nearby rivers and as well as if there is any canals, so they will have proper irrigation. But most of the times and many a times here India which is mainly depend upon this monsoon rainfall. So it is called as rain-fed agriculture in India. So these monsoons will be very much helpful for hundreds of millions of people who depend upon this agriculture. So because of this, some intense patterns and as well as intensity, which is mainly posing a challenge or risk for these farmers. So the recurrent burst which mainly shows that anomalies in precipitation over the state spectacularly demonstrated by the inundation of towns in 2018 and by mudslides. So what is this mudslides means nothing but, so whenever if there is any heavy rainfall, so due to water, so the mud which is present, that will be saturated with this water, and along with this water this mud will also come down. So those are called as mudslides. So mudslides which mainly happened or evident in Kerala in 2018. So because of all these things, we require a comprehensive adaptation plan. So this year, because of this torrential rains in the state, which had killed at least 35 people so far, and even reservoirs in this Kerala, they had causing an alarm here. Okay, so in this context, we need to mainly focus on this management of rivers and even mountainous slopes here. So what is the need or what is the way forward? So first and the foremost thing here is we need to go for nurturing the health of rivers and keep them free from encroachments. So if there is any river which is flowing here, so on this banks of rivers, so these banks should be free from encroachment. Why? Because if there is any sediments which is mainly deposited means, so level of carrying capacity will be decreased of that river, and because of that is leading to flooding here. So because of this, we need to ensure there should be free. So whenever the river is flowing on these banks, it need to be free from these encroachments. And here, if you are talking about this mountain slope, so there will be some vegetation that is present, and we should not disturb that vegetation. And we need to control mining, and as well as we need to control deforestation, and we need to go for sustainable buildings or construction, but not unsustainable buildings. And the ecological imperative should be clear to Kerala, with successive years of devastation echoing and as well as warning in this Gadgil committee. So what happened here? We need to talk about this Madhav Gadgil committee. So this Madhav Gadgil committee which mainly said or recommended some important steps that need to be taken for conservation of this Western Ghats. So if you are not taking some conservation steps regarding the saving of this Western Ghats, that will lead to heavy devastation. So this thing mainly said by this Madhav Gadgil committee. So regarding this Madhav Gadgil committee, so one question in our previous prelims had come, I think so, if I am not wrong. So please refer that. And next one is one estimate by researchers in 2017. They says that quarrying area in Kerala which is over 7,157 hectares. Much of it's in central districts and as well as where these districts which mainly hit by this mudslides. So here in this context, we need to understand and we need to evident government that is unconscionable and as well as allow the pursuit for short-term profits and as well as the cost of helpless communities. So if there is any mining industry that need to be set up in this area here, so this mining industry will come to government and take permission. So in this way here, government will be getting some investment so and so, but it is for the short term. So for the short term profits here, government which is mainly ignoring the cost of helpless communities. And if you see here, in this context, we need accurately mapped hazard zones and that should inform all the decisions. and there is a similar threat from extreme weather, breaking glaciers and as well as cloudburst that we are seeing in Uttarakhand and as well as Himachal Pradesh. So here whenever we are conserving this forest and as well as everything, then we can control some amount of this climate change. And now several states are facing climate change impact and extreme weather etc. here. So these are some important events which mainly caused by this climate change. So this is gist of this topic and I hope it is very much clear. So now let us try to see next topic. Title says Greenfield Hopes. This article especially talking about investments. So we need investments especially for our economic growth. So whenever there is investment that is coming up, then what happen, activities will be starting. So whenever the activities we are happening means that will leads to income for the people who are working in that so and so company, and whenever they are getting income, they will go to market and they will place orders or demands for goods and services such that will leads to increase in economic activity and as well as increase in like economic recovery that will be happening. So this article especially talking about these investments. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you're talking about this topic which is mainly focusing on investment, so why we need to talk about these investments? So after this second wave of this coronavirus, now we are seeing there is a gradual lifting of restriction that is seen, right? So almost in all the states there is gradual lifting of restrictions, and even schools they started opening, and as well as universities and as well as colleges they started open, right? And not only this, even restaurants and as well as movie theaters they opened. And now we are seeing there is some revival of economic activities that are happening in our economy. So not only this but also investments they are increasing in India. So if you are talking about data regarding investments, so data from investment monitoring from projects which mainly reveal that investment commitments and indicators of actual capital expenditure on the ground recorded a more than robust sequential growth in the July to September quarter after incipient quarter one. So it mainly says that after quarter one of this year, this financial year, and now in this second quarter we are seeing there is increasing of investments in our economy. So what might be reasons? So first one is there is increasing of central government spending. So this is the one important partial reason that led to increase in investment. And second important reason here is private capital outlays. So private people they are also coming towards investing here, and it is nearly 49%. And the implementation of this production linked incentive scheme to promote manufacturing investments in India, which is also expected to increase more investments in especially textile, pharmaceutical industries, electronics etc. in this second half of this year. So these are the some important reasons. But if you see here, few investments they are away from Vietnam, they are coming from Vietnam, Cambodia and now from Bangladesh here. So many critics says that yet these because of this PLI scheme there is many investment that is coming here. But here if you see not only the investments which is coming from private sector but even from other countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, Bangladesh. So there is investments that is coming from different countries to India, and we are also seeing to decrease the dependence of China here. And if you see here, not only this, recently Air India which mainly handed or Tata Group got this Air India. Okay, so because of this now we can see some confidence that can be seen in these airlines as well as. So in this context, what is the need? So need here is we need to go for economic partnership pacts. For example, we need to come up with ties with key markets like European Union, US and as well as UK etc. So in this way, India needs to invest in some of this energy that will helpful for overall socio-economic parameters as well. So we need to follow the rules according to rule of law. So these are the some important things that we do that get helpful in e-commerce. And not only that, in a world where capital is increasingly influenced by environmental, social, governance standards. So these factors are also be kept in mind here. So based on these environmental rules and as well as social and governance standards, so we can attract a lot of amount of investments, and we need to focus on this area as well. So this is just of this topic. And now let us try to see next topic. It is about improving livestock breeding. So this article mainly talking about schemes which are regarding this livestock breeding which had been revised. So due to this revised schemes, that will enhance productivity and as well as traceability standards of India's livestock. So now let us try to understand this article in a very great detail. So if you are talking about introduction, so livestock breeding in India has been largely unorganized. Okay, so if you are talking about livestock breeding, it is unorganized in India. So because there are many gaps which are mainly present in forward and as well as backward integration across this value chain. So because of this, most of this livestock breeding is unorganized sector. So such a scenario which mainly impacts quality of livestock. So if it is formal, means we can get technology, we can get some good standard operating procedures, etc. But in organized sector we cannot get that. So because of this, the quality of livestock which is produced, so that is also having some negative impacts on investments and as well as even on livestock farmers. So if you are talking about data, approximately 200 million Indians, they are involved in this livestock farming, and out of this 200 million, just 100 million, so half, 50%, 100 million dairy farmers are present, and they will be having 80% of bovines in the country, but these bovines are low productive. Okay, and now let us try to see what are the schemes. First one is we have this Rashtriya Gokul Mission. To enhance productivity of this cattle, our government came up with this scheme Rashtriya Gokul Mission in year 2014, and under this Rashtriya Gokul Mission we are mainly focusing on genetic upgradation of bovine population through widespread incentives, for example artificial insemination and even sex sorted semen and even in vitro fertilization. So these are the techniques, okay, that we can follow under this Rashtriya Gokul Mission, that is mainly focusing to enhance productivity of cattle. And if you are talking about entrepreneurship development, so under this Rashtriya Gokul Mission and as well as National Livestock Mission, it mainly proposes to bring focus on this entrepreneurship development, and they mainly focuses on breed improvement in cattle, buffalo, goats, sheep, poultry and as well as piggery. So under this missions, they will mainly provide some incentives to individual entrepreneurs. For example, not only individual entrepreneurs but also farmer producer organizations, FPOs, farmer cooperatives, joint liability groups, self-help groups, etc. And under these schemes, Section 8 companies for entrepreneurship development, so they will be also helpful for breed improvement infrastructure as well. So if you are talking about this Rashtriya Gokul Mission, which mainly provides subsidy, capital subsidy of rupees 200 lakhs for setting up of breeding farm, and it should contain at least 200 milch cows or buffaloes. And what is the significance of this Rashtriya Gokul Mission? So first one here is, here whenever they are providing some capital subsidy, so this will be helpful to sell at least 116 elite female calves every year. And next one is, after setting up of these farms, then farmer or entrepreneur, they can get at least 15 kgs of milk, that is 15 liters of milk per animal per day, around 180 animals from the first year itself. And next one is the strategy of incentivizing breed multiplication farm that will result in employment opportunities. Finally, it will also create employment opportunities for 1 lakh farms. And next one is grassroots initiatives in this sphere that will further amplified by web application. So we are having even web application, that is eGopala. So this eGopala will provide real-time information to livestock farmers regarding disease-free germplasm in relevant centers, and as well as where they can get this veterinary care, etc. And here if you are talking about poultry also, they are providing some incentives. So for poultry entrepreneurship program, Under this National Livestock Mission, it will provide capital subsidy of about up to 25 lakhs for setting up of parent farm with a capacity of at least 1000 chicks. And this one is under this model, hatcheries are expected to produce at least 500 eggs per day. And under this model, the rural entrepreneur running the hatchery will be supplying chicks to farmers. And this one is it is mainly expected to provide employment for 14 lakh people. And if you're talking about one more thing like sheep and goat, they will get subsidy of 50% up to 50 lakhs. And next one is an entrepreneur under this model shall set up a breeder farm, and they will develop the whole chain, will eventually sell the animals to the farmers in the open market. Okay, so directly entrepreneurs, they can sell animals to farmers or by the open market. And here whenever we are going for the sheep and goat, that will fetch annual income of or profits of rupees 33 lakhs. And if you are talking about piggery, for piggery also 50% of capital subsidy will be given, that will be up to 30 lakh rupees. And each entrepreneur, they will be helped with an establishment of breeder farms and even a new batch of piglets that will be ready for every 6 months. So as you know, pigs, they will reproduce very fast and they will give at a time 4 or 5 piglets, right? So here in this way, here the each batch, so they will be getting piglets that will be ready for every 6 months. And this model is expected to generate profit of 1.37 crore after 16 months and 1.5 lakh jobs. So in this way, we can get good profits, and as well we can create large amount of employment in this animal sector or livelihood sector. And the next one is livestock sector, and this one is the revised scheme of this National Livestock Mission, which also coupled with this Rashtriya Gokul Mission and Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund, which has potential extremely to dramatically enhance the productivity and as well as traceability standards of our livestock. So this is a gist of this topic, and I hope it is clear. And one more topic that I find important, it is about oversimplified models and complex social system. Actually, this topic it is mainly talking about physics Nobel Prize. So you can read that article, and you should not go through deep into this topic. It is not much important from our UPSC point of view. So if you are interested, you can see this article. So by this, I am concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. Thank you so much.